It's March again, and it seems like all anyone can talk about is college basketball. And you're hearing brackets and you're hearing names of people that you don't really know. You might even create a bracket yourself and you're picking just based off of colors and vibes and who has the hotter players. Well, ladies, today I am going to bring you March Madness for Hotties, which is a full comprehensive breakdown of everything you need to know to enjoy this year's March Madness. From the characters and storylines and drama that you need to know to how to create a bracket, tips for creating a bracket, and all of the lingo to keep up in all of the conversations. As always, I have a pretty presentation to illustrate my point for my visual learners out there. And welcome girls, gays, theys, and straight men who don't want to admit they don't know anything about sports to March Madness for Hotties. March Madness is essentially just the college basketball playoffs. It's 68 college basketball teams battling it out in a single elimination tournament. This basically just means if you lose, you go home, and if you win, you keep dancing. I use the term dancing because some people refer to March Madness as the big dance. So if you want some extra brownie points, you can refer to it as such. Now, the crazy thing about it being single elimination is whereas in other sports like the NBA, you have to beat a team 4 times to move on in the playoffs, right? This ensures that the best team wins, right? So that you don't have 2 shitty teams in the NBA finals. However, in college basketball, because it's single elimination, any team can have a good day and any team can have a bad day, which means that there could be a 16 seeded team, a number 16 team playing a number 1 team, and the 16 team could have a good day and beat them. And it's the craziest thing ever. And that means that number 1 team is out and their season is over. Filling out a bracket might look intimidating, but it's really just choosing which team will win each round. Here is your foolproof method for creating the perfect bracket. Now, what is the big deal about March Madness and why does everyone want to create a bracket and be a part of it? Number 1, the bragging rights and the clout. If you pick the right upsets, which means if you pick the right lesser good teams to beat really good teams and you surprise everybody and your bracket looks good, instantly you're considered a sports genius. Now, if your bracket flops, you can just say, March Madness has been so unpredictable this year, because it always is. It's also a social event. People compete in office pools, friend groups, or even family brackets for fun. That's what me and my family do. Even celebrities do it. Barack Obama posts his bracket every year. Fun fact. Then there's the thrill of the upsets. As I mentioned before, if you pick a random low seed and they go on a run, then you look like a basketball prophet. Some people enter bracket pools for money, prizes, or just friendly competition. Even big companies do this. Warren Buffett once offered $1 billion for the perfect bracket. And fun fact, don't feel bad if your bracket doesn't turn out perfect because there has never in the history of March Madness been a perfect bracket. It also gives you a reason to care. Like if you don't watch college basketball, having a bracket makes you invested in what's going on. Lastly, there's drama and chaos, as we all love. This is why I say, if you love reality television and you're not watching sports, what are you doing? Because everyone's bracket gets ruined at some point, which is also called busted. That's some lingo you need to know. Bracket being busted means that you picked a certain team that you thought was going to go all the way and they lost pretty early, or they just basically fucked up your whole bracket. Now, you don't need to know basketball to make a bracket. You just need a gut feeling and some luck. Like I said, there's never been a perfect one, even with experts and people who study numbers and like digest this shit for a living. Like no one's ever been perfect. So you might as well just pick based on your woman's intuition. Now, this is how it works. There will be 4 regions: East, West, South, and Midwest. So they'll be broken up kind of like this: East, West, South, Midwest, whatever. And each region will rank the teams from 1 to 16. The number 1 seeds are the favorites, which is like Beyonce level dominant. It's like, okay, like it's the Grammys. They've won the most games. Like they are like the favorites to win, if that makes sense. And then the 16 seeds are the underdogs. 16 seeds have literally won twice in history, but we love a dreamer. So your bracket will look a lot like this image right here. If you're watching on video and not listening in audio, it's basically like this bracketed little space where there's 2 teams and then it breaks off into one line where there's only one team. The winning team will go on that singular line. So this is how to do your bracket. You'll see matchups like, for example, number 1 versus number 16. Usually in any sports playoffs, the best teams get to play the worst teams as a present for being the best. So that's why you want to try really hard during the regular season and win a lot of games, because you want to be that number 1 seed so that you get to play the number 16 in the first round, and you'll most likely win that because they're ranked so low and you're ranked so high. So once you see your matchup, number 1 versus number 16, you choose which team you think will win. Here's a tip. Number 1 seeds almost always win, except for twice in history. Now, where it gets difficult is you'll get to a point where you have to choose between the number 9 seed and the number 8 seed. That's a toss-up. I usually just pick based on vibes. A really well-known tip is that the 12/5 upset always happens. Typically in March Madness, usually a number 12 seed beats a number 5 seed at some point. So if you want to be sneaky, maybe pick a number 12 over a number 5 at some point in your bracket. Now you keep choosing each round until you have a winner. You'll start with a round of 64, and then you'll move on to the round of 32 because half the teams are eliminated, then to the Sweet 16. This is when it starts getting honorable to still be in the tournament, when people are like, oh my God, we made it to the Sweet 16, because it's a good thing to be in the top 16 of 68 teams. And then after the Sweet 16 is the Elite 8, the Final Four, and then the championship. Once you get to your national championship, you will choose who's going to win, and then you will also choose a score. The score is typically like a tiebreaker, and for a tip, usually college basketball games are scored in the 60s and 70s. So don't go picking somebody's going to win 112 to 101. That's an NBA score. They're usually maybe 68-70 could be a fair score. Now, let's get into some storylines that I feel like you need to know going into March Madness, some of the characters that maybe you can root for or root against. I don't know what your prerogative is. So one of my favorite storylines, and somebody that I'm really rooting for, is Paige Bueckers. Now, it's important to note that we are seeing the next generation of WNBA stars playing in the college game right now, and they're absolutely killing it. And part of the reason why I prefer almost watching the women's game, why am I lying? Part of the reason I prefer, period, the women's tournament over the men's tournament is because women's college basketball players have to stay in college for at least 3 years to be able to go professional. Whereas in men's college basketball, they can play for only 1 year and then they're eligible to go to the NBA. That might be great for them. And I know a lot of the women really want to be able to go pro automatically after 1 year. However, I think it's better for the women's game that they have to stay in college for longer. Not only are they getting degrees and super educated, but on top of that, I get to know the storylines. I get to see you lose and then root for you to win again. I get to see rivalries brew. I get to root for you. I get to see records get broken and happen. Usually in the men's game, if a record's getting broken, that means that you just weren't good enough to make it to the NBA, because why are you still here? Now, Paige Bueckers, she is one of my absolute favorite basketball players, not just because she's so fun to watch. She's talking trash. She's shifty. She's so good. She plays at UConn, and UConn is I keep using Beyonce as an example, so I'm going to try to think of something else. No, I'm using Beyonce again. They're like the Beyonce of women's college basketball. UConn, no matter what happens in their season, they usually find a way to get to the Final Four. But Paige Bueckers has had quite the ups and downs throughout her college basketball career. And you've seen edits of her on TikTok. People love her. She's like the aura queen. She's walking red carpets. She's sitting front row at the Off-White show. She's an icon. And this is her last shot to possibly win the national championship. And I think a lot of people want to see her do it. But the question is, will she? Because we haven't seen this UConn team have a lot of weaknesses so far, but it's March Madness. Literally anything can happen. Then you've got University of South Carolina and Coach Louis Vuitton Don, the modern day college basketball dynasty. They don't lose. This is a winning program. They are the reigning college basketball champions. And it's time to see if they can put their money where their mouth is and go back to back and do it again. Then you've got Juju Watkins chasing history and records, which every time she steps on the court, a possible record is to be broken. She is incredible. And we saw USC lose to UCLA in their conference championship. But I think that this just means that Juju is going to go even harder if she sees them in the NCAA tournament. And Juju has had so much hype surrounding her. I mean, she's on billboards all over California. She's really that girl. So can she make some noise in the NCAA tournament? Let's see. Then you've got TCU and their comeback era. Now, this is interesting because last year TCU was so bad. I mean, y'all, bad that they had to host open tryouts to join the basketball team. I mean, like any old student on campus could have tried out for the women's basketball team because they were so terrible and they needed players so bad. I don't even think they won a conference game. And if they did, they won like one last season and they won their conference this year. They have completely turned things around. To go from holding open tryouts to join their team and being like the worst team in your conference to being on top, winning the championship. And I think that's in part due to the addition of Haley Van Lith, who was also in her comeback era. She was turned into a meme when she was at LSU. She went to LSU, that was with Angel Reese, with Flagg, and everyone thought, oh, these are the champs. Like, this is a super team. These are all the big names. Well, it didn't seem to be a good fit. She leaves, she goes to TCU, and she has been playing her ass off. She's shooting efficiently. She seems confident again. She's back to being a leader. Like, absolutely in their comeback era. Now, I would say the downfall about this team is they're a little elder. Okay, they're a little older. It might be time for some of these ladies to either go out into the professional world or go to the WNBA after this, but I'm still rooting for them to continue on to their success. And then we've got some big injuries to watch, but one of the main ones is Flagg from LSU, who is dealing with some shin inflammation and was out for their conference tournament. However, I think that they were just saving her, letting her rest for a little bit so that she can go off in the tournament. But the problem with that shin injury is she needs that bounce. That bounce and that shiftiness is a part of her game, and having that injured shin makes it harder for you to be shifty the way that we know Flagg to be, and they need her. She's like an iron woman. Like, her first game off for this shin situation was her first game off in college. So she doesn't want to be out. She wants to go out for her team, and I hope that we get to see her do it because LSU is a sneaky little team. They can beat you if they run into you. Then on the men's side, you've got Cooper Flagg living up to the hype. Cooper Flagg is really that guy. He's just as good as everyone says he is. He put it on the Team USA basketball team during their practices. Like, he's amazing. The problem is, it seems like he got a little bit tweaked, a little bit injured recently, and so he might be out to start off the tournament. I don't know. You didn't hear that here, but the point is, this is the one to watch. This is the guy. Then you've got UConn and their fall from grace. So this is so tea. The UConn head coach, Dan Hurley, was actively being courted to be the Lakers head coach this season, which is now JJ Redick. But he decided against coaching for the LA Lakers, okay, one of the hallmark franchises in the NBA, because UConn had won the NCAA championship for the last 2 years in a row, and he wanted to go back to UConn to chase the three-peat. Well, the way the team is looking this year, they not looking like they about to three-peat. They not looking like they about to beat anything. I don't know. I don't want to make too dramatic of predictions because what if they do really well? They have that championship prowess. So let me shut my ass up. The problem is they're not nearly at the level that they were last year. And so it's not looking like they're going to get that three-peat. And it's like, should Dan Hurley have just gone back and coached for the Lakers? I don't know. This I love. This is a storyline I love because the SEC, so I went to Georgia. I am a Bulldog through and through. And the SEC was typically like, picture this. It's football season. Woo! Then it's spring football. All right, yeah, let's see what our team is giving. And then there's everything else. You know, like the SEC is really like, especially to basketball. Basketball is like football's little stepbrother in the SEC. Well, not anymore, baby. Not anymore. The South got something to say. Period. The SEC is doing so well so far. We've got a few teams in the top 6. We've got a bunch of teams in the top 25. All of these teams are battling out. It used to be Kentucky was like the main blue blood, and they were in the SEC, and it was like Kentucky and everybody else. But you've got all of these teams. Auburn, Johnny Broom, they're them, okay? And I'm an Auburn hater because I'm a Georgia Bulldog, but it's nice to see the SEC having something to say in the basketball world. The SEC is slated to have the most teams in the NCAA tournament with, I believe, 12. And then next to them is the Big Ten. So the SEC is slated to have the most teams in the NCAA tournament of any other conference, which I don't think anybody really saw coming. That's it for all of the storylines. I am so excited for March Madness. It's one of my favorite times of the year. And hopefully now you know all that you need to know to create your bracket, get the challenge going, and maybe even win your bracket challenge in your office or in your family or whatever. Comment below who's a sleeper team that you're rooting for, what college you might have went to and might be looking forward to doing really well in the tournament. And make sure you subscribe to the Hoops for Hotties podcast and on YouTube and keep it locked here for all of the sports tea. Bye.